Does this cycle sound familiar to you? You eat healthy 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, but when the weekend comes, it's like all hell breaks loose, and then you just eat whatever you want, and then come Monday, that darn scale goes up again. After coaching weight loss clients for several years now, the one thing that gets in the way of my clients who are ambitious women entrepreneurs is the weekend overeating. It's the one thing that gets in the way of them achieving their weight loss goals or sustaining their weight loss permanently. By the end of this video, you're gonna learn 3 practical tips that I give all my clients to help them stop the weekend overeating for good so they can lose weight permanently. If you're ready to feel in control around food, especially on the weekend, keep watching till the end of this video. My first tip on how to stop overeating on the weekends is to plan what you're gonna eat ahead of time. And to plan ahead of time, I like to use my handy dandy purpose planner, which you can actually get your own copy by clicking the link in my description box below. But anyway, the number one thing that people will say to me about planning ahead of time is,
Charmaine, but how do you plan food ahead of time when we don't know where we're gonna eat? Like if we don't know what restaurant we're going to, we don't know what our friends and family wanna eat or what they're gonna do, what are we supposed to do in that case?
So here's my top tips for planning ahead what you're gonna eat on the weekend. The first thing I wanna say is, if you do already know which restaurant you're going to go to with your friends and family, be sure to research that restaurant's menu ahead of time so you could quickly see which foods are in alignment with your weight loss goals. So you'll already come in with a game plan and you'll already know, okay, I'm gonna eat this and I'll be good. I'm gonna be able to stay on track with my weight loss goals. Some examples of food I like to order in a restaurant ahead of time, which is in alignment with my weight loss goals and basically in alignment with eating sugar-free and low carb, is especially if you go to an American restaurant and you have an omelet with a lot of veggies, with a protein, and a side dish, which you could get with berries, which I usually like to get. That's an easy go-to. Another easy go-to that I like to eat at restaurants, especially American restaurants, but you could find this in a lot of other cuisines like Mediterranean and Thai food, and even Korean food and Mexican food, is that you wanna order a dish that basically has a lot of meat and vegetables. So you could order a bunch of salads, like a salad I like to go to is Cobb salad, but you could also get a lot of meat and veggie dishes in Mexican cuisine, and a lot of these restaurants are willing to substitute rice and carbs for salad. However, if you don't know what restaurant you're gonna eat at, I have some tips for that too. Especially with the holidays coming up, if you don't know where you're going to eat or what plans your family's gonna have or what food's gonna be available and blah, 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 you can actually be the one to choose for everybody else. That means you take the initiative of picking the restaurant, of hosting the event, of having people over at your home for the next gathering. And when you do this, when you take initiative, what I've found in my experience and also with my clients' experience is that when you take the initiative to plan ahead, people tend to go along with it. Most people don't like to make decisions, especially in a group setting. So I know a lot of people are afraid of choosing the restaurant because they think everybody else isn't gonna agree. But what I found is most people don't like to make decisions. So if you pick the restaurant first, people will tend to go along and deal with it. So might as well be the one to pick it first. And if you're going to a party and you're not sure what food they're going to serve, my next tip is super simple for that. And that is bring your own dish, or what I like to say, BYOD. So some go-tos that I love to bring at parties is I have certain recipes that I love to make, especially for holidays and things like that, that are low carb and don't have a lot of sugar. So I like to bring, for example, for Thanksgiving, I love to make my own keto stuffing, which has a cornbread that's made with coconut flour instead of corn flour. And for drinks, since I don't drink alcohol, I love to bring sparkling water, and so that's usually a hit with any party I go to, especially if you're over 30. All right, so now that you know how to plan ahead for the foods you're gonna eat in the weekend, let's move on to tip number 2 on how to stop overeating on the weekends. So tip number 2, which you might not expect, is to bring your body into a calm state while you're eating. Especially if you're in a social setting or a setting that could bring up anxiety or some kind of self-consciousness, your body will be in a fight or flight mode. And when your body's in fight or flight, it will basically release a lot of stress hormones, and that will tell your body like,
hey, we need more energy, like we need to prepare to escape, to run, or to avoid danger in some way.
And the brain doesn't know the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat. So even if you're in a social situation where there's no physical danger involved, unless your friends are gonna kill you or something, which I hope they're not. But when you're in a social situation, it could bring up a lot of anxiety. And so when your body's in that anxious state, it's going to perceive like there's a threat going on. So that's why the fight or flight response is activated. So to get out of a fight or flight mode while you're in a social situation, you'll want to take these steps. The first thing you want to do, especially when you're eating out, is that you want to take some deep breaths, especially before you eat and while you're eating. So I like to go in through your nose and out through your mouth, but if you want to be a little bit more subtle, just deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose very slowly. You'll notice that when you're stressed, when your body's stressed, you're going to want to have like short breaths. So make sure you take the time to take deep breaths in and deep breaths out. The second thing you want to do is you want to eat your food more mindfully. So to demonstrate, I got a little friend here with us. I got a cookie. And what you'll want to do when I say eat mindfully is you'll want to be fully present and paying attention to how you're eating your food and what your food is like, so that you're not overeating and you're not eating in this sort of anxious state. So to eat your food mindfully, you want to first notice the textures of the food. You want to notice the smell. You want to notice the weight of the food. How does it feel in the palm of your hand? Or how does the plate feel? How heavy is the plate? And then when you're aware of that, you could be in the state where you're appreciating your food a lot more, so you're not eating it in a hurry. The next thing you want to do is take very slow bites where you savor each bite and you really take a moment to taste the flavors on your tongue. So let me show you. So really take a moment to allow yourself to eat one bite at a time. Allow the food to dissolve in your mouth, the saliva to just digest it, and really pay attention to the flavors. How do the flavors change over time on your tongue? How does each bite change over time? And then also notice, how does your stomach feel as you're eating the food? So take each bite by bite, notice how your stomach feels as you're eating, and the minute your stomach is telling you, I've had enough, I'm satisfied, that's when you could put the food down and stop eating. I also recommend that in between bites, you put down your spoon and fork. So meaning you eat and then just put it down on the table and don't touch it until you're ready to take your next bite. Finally, the last things you want to do with your posture is you want to make sure your feet are touching the ground, make sure you're sitting upright, and make sure that you are eating slowly and again, breathing throughout the meal. You'll also want to keep your legs uncrossed so you're not in this sort of tense stance. Like you want to keep your body open and relaxed, which will make your brain feel relaxed. So if your posture is in a relaxed state, your brain will be in a relaxed state, and you could get out of that fight or flight mode. Now, before I go on to the last tip, tip number 3, I just wanted to mention that if you want to plan your meals ahead of time, this is why I created a purpose planner for you to write down your meals all in one document, and this is exactly what I use every day. It's what I give my clients, and so you could buy your own digital copy by clicking the link in the description box below. All right, now moving on to the last tip on how to stop overeating on the weekend. For tip number 3, you want to eat veggies first, eat proteins and fats second, and then eat sweets and desserts or any starchy carbs last. So the order that you eat your food matters, and here's why. If you eat all the sweets, if you drink alcohol, if you have something really high in carbs in the beginning of your meal, like bread that they give at Italian restaurants, those kind of foods will spike your blood sugar very quickly, and whenever you have a high spike in blood sugar, that will make you go into a dip, like a blood sugar crash. And when your blood sugar is crashing, that's going to make your body want more food. It's gonna want more sugar. So when your blood sugar is starting to crash or starting to dip, that's going to signal you to want to eat more. So to avoid any blood sugar spikes and dips, you want to eat food that stabilizes your blood sugar and doesn't make you prone to overeating or feeling hungrier and more tired and hangry, or hungry and angry. So to do that, you want to first load up on all the vegetables, especially above ground vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, spinach, kale, Brussels sprouts. You want to load up on all these above ground vegetables that keep your blood sugar steady. They're not high in starches, they're not high in carbs, and so it will keep you full. It has a lot of fiber. It's slowly digested over time, so your blood sugar remains stable. Second, you want to have a lot of proteins and fats, especially fattier proteins like salmon, steak, and also pork. Those proteins are very filling, and it will activate your fullness hormones, which will help tell your brain that you've had enough to eat. Finally, you want to end the meal with any starchy carbs if you want to have some starches, especially things like bread, if you want to have a dessert like cake or cookies, or if you want to have even alcohol. You want to save all that at the end so that your blood sugar will be already pretty stable by the time you eat those foods. And remember, throughout this whole time, you want to eat slowly. You want to be sure you're being in tune with your stomach and stopping to check in with your stomach between bites, so you make sure you're not overeating. Refer to tip number 2 if you forgot about this already. All right, you guys, now you've learned my 3 practical tips on how to stop overeating on the weekends, and these 3 tips are exactly what I've done to help myself stop overeating on the weekends. It's helped my clients feel in control and empowered on the weekends, even if they've gone on vacation, even if they went to Disneyland. This helps them stop overeating on the weekends so they could keep the weight loss on Monday and beyond. All right, so no more cycling, no more gaining weight on the weekend. The weight loss can be steady if you implement these 3 tips. All right, you guys, so if you want this and more of my weekly videos, you can subscribe by hitting the subscribe button below and clicking the bell for all the notifications, so you'll be the first to get my weekly tips on how to feel in control around sugar and carbs. All right, everybody, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.